Hi, I'm Annie Fitzsimmons. I'm your Washington REALTORS Legal Hotline lawyer. We have seen some significant and substantive changes to the Washington Residential Landlord-Tenant Act during the 2025 legislative session. And because the new bills that were passed, that became law, included an emergency clause, the laws are already in effect. We are embarking on a series of videos to explain the substantive changes in that law for you, whether you are a property owner yourself, an investor property owner yourself, or whether you are managing properties for others. So let me introduce to you Jennifer Hohnstein. She is our subject matter expert for this video, and we are so grateful to have her here with us today. She's a lawyer practicing with Williams Kastner in Seattle. She specializes in representing landlords under the Washington Residential Landlord-Tenant Act with an emphasis or a specialization, if you will, in eviction actions. And then, of course, you recognize our own Mary Hull-Drury, director of the Washington REALTORS Government Affairs Department. She has her own unique insights into the new legislation and the making of that legislation. So, Jennifer, let's jump right to the issue at hand. All of the changes that we're going to talk about revolve around the primary issue, which is rent caps. And in 1 second, I'm going to ask you to explain those. I do want to provide one exception, though, a caveat. Nothing that Jennifer is about to say applies in the form of rent caps to mobile homes on leased land. Mobile homes on leased land did receive rent cap legislation in 2025, but it is different and distinct from what Jennifer is about to describe. So with that caveat, Jennifer, what is the rent cap? When we say that now under Washington law, what are we saying?
We're saying that under Washington law, right now, the maximum amount that landlords can raise rent is either 10% or 7% plus CPI. And when I say CPI, I mean the Consumer Price Index.
And so this is the Washington Residential Landlord-Tenant Act. When we say landlords, we're talking about residential landlords, right?
Yes.
Okay. CPI, I'm sorry, you just said it stands for what?
Consumer Price Index.
And how is a landlord supposed to know what CPI is?
Well, luckily, the legislature did provide some guidance with this. Starting June 1st, the Department of Commerce is going to be publishing the amount on their webpage.
Mary, yes. What does the legislation tell us about the Department of Commerce and publishing that number?
So they're entrusted to establish the CPI on an annual basis, as was mentioned, on June 1st. They're going to use some federal information, specifically through the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, to help them assign that number. And they will have a website on the Department of Commerce webpage dedicated to House Bill 1217, which is the legislation that passed, that shares that information. And we will have a link to the video.
As of the filming of this video, that webpage is not up yet, correct?
It's currently under construction. Everything is very, very new.
Right. And so one of the things that we don't know, we were talking about this earlier, is there one single rate, CPI rate across the state? We think so, correct? But it's possible that when the website is actually up, we learn something different about the publication of that number. I asked Jennifer, what is she going to do? And she said, I'm going to do whatever the website tells me to do, right?
I think that's fair to say. I am going to log on, see what the number is, and that's the number I'm going to be using.
Okay, so in practical terms then, let's say that the CPI rate, it will be published in a number that looks something like, and I'm going to make up a number, but it's going to be like 2.3%, something like that, right? It's going to be some number that's less than 5.
Yeah, hopefully.
Right? I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. We're not dealing like with 30% that could be CPI added to 7. It's 7% plus whatever the number of CPI is, and it's likely to be at or about, when you add those two numbers, at or about 10%, correct?
Yes, if we used your example at 2.3%, the maximum that rent could be raised would be then 9.3%.
Okay.
So again, you take the lower of the amounts, whether it be 10% or 7% plus CPI, and you take the lower number, and that's the maximum that rent can be raised.
And so that number could be any number. It's going to be based, like Mary said, on a formula.
Correct.
Right?
It could be 7%, it could be 10%, or it could be 9.3%.
Okay. So the expectation is that CPI number is going to be added onto the 7%, and then there will be a clear answer as to whether that number, 7 plus whatever the CPI is greater or less than 10%.
Correct.
And whichever number is smaller, 7% plus CPI or 10%, that's the maximum that rent can be raised.
Exactly. Whatever the CPI comes out, in no way will anyone be able to increase rent over 10%.
Okay.
From June 1st of that year determination to the subsequent June 1st of the following year. So for instance, June 1, 2025, let's arguably say it's 9.3. That 9.3 will be applicable.
When you say 9.3, you're saying 7 plus 2.3.
Correct. Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
That will be the rate up until June 1st, 2026, at which point Department of Commerce will publish a new CPI.
Okay.
And a new rental rate cap.
Okay. And so it's, all right, so from June 1st, 2025, all the way through June 1st of 2026.
Correct.
It would be the same number. Jennifer, does it matter whether the property is being rented on a month-to-month versus a 12-month time period?
Yes and no. Whatever the lease term is, the maximum amount has to be that rent cap. Now, of course, there's some landlords who want to discount the amount of rent they charge to really incentivize the long-term rentals. And so, for example, if landlords are thinking about offering 1 month-to-month rate and then having a discounted rate for a 12-month lease, you need to talk to counsel because there are maximums to the amount of discounts that you can currently provide.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, one more question to confuse
Yes.
it then.
Yeah.
Is this straight across the board for every residential landlord, or are there exceptions? Are there some landlords who are going to be able to increase rent at a higher rate?
Of course there's exceptions. I mean, there's truly are so many exceptions to every rule here. And so I believe that we're going to go through the exceptions in another video.
I think that's a good idea. So wrapping up this video, here's the word of caution I want to leave with our members, and I think we'll probably repeat this in every single video. As we have seen with all of the recent changes to the Washington residential landlord-tenant law, and I'm talking about looking back over 4 or 5 year time period, I think that you'll agree with me that there is so much gray area embedded in all the legislation.
Yes.
And that's partly because so much of it is new. We don't have appellate courts giving us decisions yet that establish precedent for application or interpretation and understanding of some of the provisions of the landlord-tenant law, which means that we are seeing a wide range of decisions across the state from county to county. Is that fair?
I think you hit the nail on the head that unfortunately, because there's so much new legislation that's been enacted in the past few years, that there can be massively different interpretations depending on the commissioner, depending on the location and the county. And there's so many variables that whatever you do, you have to understand that going into this area, there is a lot of uncertainty and there can be a lot of risk with various courses of action.
Yeah. So we're going to repeat this over and over again. But what Jennifer and Mary and I are trying to do for you today is give you a basic understanding, a heads up, if you will, of the substantial changes to the law, and encourage you to talk to your lawyer, or if you're a property manager, to the landlord's lawyers about the changes in law and how they impact the landlord specifically. If you have questions on this video or anything else, please send me a question by visiting warealtor.org and following the links to the legal hotline. Thank you for being a Washington REALTORS member.